Well, welcome to week 8. We're just at the end phase now of our process here in terms of leadership theory and practice. I wanted to begin by thanking you for the wonderful gratitude papers. I know that many of you reflected in your paper that this exercise and process is much more challenging and difficult than it would appear at first glance, and that while many of us do say thank you on a regular basis, to really express deep gratitude, to talk with somebody about the impact they made on our development and growth, and then to have that experience of them reflecting back to us the impact that we have made on them. I think it pulls together the ideas that gratitude is not only for the person you're expressing it to, but also for you as a leader, and how it fills us up as leaders the more we express gratitude in a very detailed, specific, and meaningful way. So I encourage each of you who you've identified the next person that you're going to give a gratitude letter for, to put that possibly in your week 10 development plan as one of the action items that might be in column 2 to continue to build your leadership optimism and continue to build on the work that we've done in our class so far. So I just wanted to recap. As you know, back on week 1, I assigned the Seligman and Peterson 2005 Interventions in Optimism, and I reposted the article, I believe, on both weeks 2 and 3 on our Blackboard. So I wanted you to reflect on, there were 3 interventions in optimism that were identified as making a significant long-term impact on optimism for leaders and optimism for followers in what we do. The first, of course, was the expression of gratitude and writing the gratitude letter. The second was the reflection on 3 good things and the importance of literally the night as we're going to sleep, rewiring what we're thinking about as we're falling asleep by focusing on the good things that happened that day and the specific impact they made on us, so that we're falling asleep thinking more about optimistic, positive outcomes that happened rather than what most of us will tend to do, which is to focus on the problems, the challenges, the issues, and then often it disrupting our sleep because we're focused on what we need to do the next day in order to address those problems, or maybe even just perseverating on the problems, and as a result, not sleeping as well, and as a result, on the next day, being less effective in what we're doing and how we're doing it. The third intervention is, of course, finding a new way to use your strengths. And so that will be the focus of your final individual development plan that you'll be doing on week 10, and will be directly related, of course, to the final paper that you'll be writing. So the final paper is worth 70 points, the final development plan worth 30 points, but those will both be submitted together at the end of week 10. And so what I want to do in this time that we spend together is to overview the 3 good things paper that you'll be analyzing your 3 good things. Hopefully you'll have data from at least 30 days, which should give you 90 observations if you were writing 3 good things every night. You may have more, you may have less, and that is absolutely fine in the process. But this week we'll focus on the analysis of the data that you've gathered over the last 4 to 6 weeks, however long you've been keeping your nightly journal. I do want to just say before we go on is optimism, again, is not just a Pollyanna, everything's going to be great, no worries type of an attitude. The focus on optimism, particularly as it's related to leadership, is that leaders are about creating change. And in order to be optimistic about the change, you have to have a clear perspective on the vision of what could be, as well as the obstacles, the challenges, the issues that we need to encounter in order to create that change. So optimism then is the focus on what actions I can take as an individual in whatever domain of leadership that I'm in right now. And again, you don't have to be in a formal position of leadership in order to lead a targeted result, outcome, project, or new process set of changes. So that is the focus that we have in terms of leadership for our class, as well as in understanding the work and research on what makes for high-performing leaders. So let's go to the 3 good things paper that you'll be writing this week. There'll be 3 sections in the paper, so please carefully review the sample that I've posted up online, as well as, of course, the rubric of the 3 subheadings I'd like you to use in the paper. And again, for this paper, APA format is not required. The only paper in our class that requires APA format is our final paper that you'll be writing and submitting for week 10. So what you'll do is, as an example, if you have been writing for the last 30 days, 3 good things every night, you would have 90 different events that you'll have written, and you'll be now rereading your journals. And what I'd like you to do is to begin by rereading the events that you've written, and then creating what I call clusters, or different events and how they tend to seem to go together. So many of you may have had events that cluster under learning, new growth, development of wisdom, whatever you'd like to call it, that you experienced over the last 30 days through the work that you've done, either through our class or other classes you're taking, the work that you're doing at work on your assignments and your day-to-day activities. And you may have a cluster of activities that fall into the category of learning and development. You may have another cluster of activities that were related to good things that happened in your relationships with people. These could be people at home, people at work, people in your community, things that you did that you found really nurturing in the events that you wrote about at the end of the day. These could be as simple as having a coffee with one of your colleagues at work, having time to have breakfast with your significant other or family before you rushed off to the day's activities. So those sorts of relationships and what happened that felt nurturing and developing through your 3 good things that you had written. You may have other events that focus on contributing to the growth of others, maybe some coaching, some feedback that you had given that was particularly rewarding, or feedback that you received from somebody else. So those are just 3 general examples. You may not have those subheadings, but I'd like you to have 3 to 4 clusters of looking at your 3 good things and then identifying the categories that you think capture what was happening. What were the patterns that was happening as you were writing these 3 good things? Again, you're not to type up a list of what you wrote in your journal. The key is to describe those good things and the impact as you look back on them now on your optimism and describing why they were good. And again, please look at the sample papers for examples of what others have done, other students in this course have done in order to integrate these clusters. Then what you're going to do is second subheading is identify in these good things, which ones were things that I caused, which ones were things that were caused by others, and then which ones were seemingly random. So you're going to have 3 categories, and again, I'd like you to count. So if you had 30 days of 3 good things and 90 activities, you may find that in your count that you had 63 of these items were things that were initiated by me. So as an example, you might have, I asked Sue to go to lunch with me, and we had a great time talking and laughing about what was happening in her life right now. Or I took initiative in the meeting to prepare for a certain project update and then talk to my manager in advance of the meeting. So that was something, again, I did. So I initiated these things. Then look at the other side. How many events were initiated by others? Someone else did the event or it caused the event. So as an example, if you have an event where maybe your significant other or your spouse called you and said, let's go out together tonight after you get home from work. I just want to spend some time catching up. We haven't been able to see each other. So that would be an event initiated by somebody else, but that was still a good thing. So you might have 30 or 40 events that fall into that category. And then there's events I also believe they're just random. And that could be events like I was listening to the radio driving home, sitting in traffic, and one of my favorite songs came on the radio, and I started singing to it, and it just felt great. It was just a random event of what happened to come on the radio. Or an interesting news story that came up that made me laugh as they were talking about what was occurring in the particular situation I was listening to. So those are just random events, things that come up that are unplanned, and they're not, if you will, anything that you had done or someone else had done. You just happened to be listening to the radio at that time, or this event happened and you were there and it was positive from your perspective. So what I'd like you to do is to write what was caused by me, what was caused by others, and then what seemed to be random. And then the last section of your paper will be, now that I see how many events I'm causing, and in the first area, the clusters in which those events fall, what will I do now to ensure that these events continue to occur over the next 30 days? And what actions will I take? What outreach will I have to different people in order to ensure that more of these good events that contributed positively to my optimism over the last 4 to 6 weeks, that they continue to happen as I look at the next 30 days. So this is about proactive leadership, taking initiative for what you want to create, for reaching out to build relationships with the people whom you'd like to build those relationships with, for taking initiative to be more involved in projects, tasks, assignments that you find to be interesting, that you can learn more, and where you believe you really have an opportunity to contribute and to develop. In this paper, for the 3 good things, you also need to have a minimum of 3 scholarly references. These references you can use from any of the references I've posted in the folders on any of our weeks on scholarly information, or they could be from the scholarly articles that you sourced during week 7 as part of the process when you are identifying different leadership articles associated with different leadership areas. And the key is to summarize and link those to your strengths and to optimistic leadership, to proactive leadership, and even some of the concepts around authentic leadership. So for an example, when you're including the references, what I want to be clear on, and this is related both to the paper that's 3 good things as well as to your final paper. When you're summarizing the information, I really want you to focus on the specific concepts in the paper that take us beyond our understanding of what was in the class. So as an example, I posted a paper on week 1 that was related to why managers should focus on emotional intelligence. It was a 2009 article. And in that article, they talked about how individuals and leaders who have higher levels of emotional intelligence, what they found in the research is that these individuals were more collaborative in their interactions on teams. They actually expressed more fairness. And so when monetary rewards and other rewards were being distributed, they were more focused on fairness and equity rather than just focus on competition and how to get more of what I think I deserve, which would be more of an individualistic perspective. So including that in your summary would be much more focused on the concepts related to what is written in the paper. And what I do not want you to do is to just repeat self-awareness is important for emotional intelligence. I think we all know from the field work that we've done and the readings and the articles that you've read and the videos you've watched that we really need to have emotional self-awareness, and that is one of the key precepts. But by this point in the course, you shouldn't be including that as part of your summary when you're doing your scholarly citations in either the paper due on 3 good things or in your final paper. So please look at the implications, the results, and discussion sections of the paper and what conclusions you can draw and linking those to the concepts in this first paper you'll be writing on 3 good things. So again, for this paper, you need to have a minimum of 3 scholarly references, which means no videos or blog posts can be included as references. They need to be scholarly references. There will be APA citations at the end of this paper, so for the 3 or more papers you select, the reference section themselves will be at the end of the paper, but you do not need a cover sheet in APA format for this Three Good Things paper. So that will be due then at the end of week 8, and I look forward to reading about your analysis of your 3 good things. And again, you do not need to type up a list of the 3 good things. That is for you to keep and to use as a reflection on all the great things that have happened over the last 4 to 6 weeks for you. So now switching gears, I want to talk just very briefly about the final paper and leadership development plan, which I do hope you've either begun writing or you will begin writing after you've completed your 3 good things paper. As you look at the final development plan, I hope you can see that all the work that you've invested through the discussion boards, as well as through the papers, the Warren Bennis papers, and your EI field work, how those will link to your final development plan. So in column 1 of your final plan, as you're looking at the actual template that you'll be writing, you need to select 3 strengths that you're going to be focusing on, and you'll have 3 separate development plans. You'll write 1 for each. And again, going to the Seligman and Peterson 2005 paper, I'd like you to focus on how you're going to use those strengths in new ways. And what you're to do is to pick either 2 emotional intelligence behaviors or 2 via strengths and 1 emotional intelligence behavior. So some combination where it adds up to a total of 3, either 2 emotional intelligence and 1 via strength, or 2 via strengths and 1 emotional intelligence behavior. And when you look at the sample, you'll see that what you'll need to do in column 1 is to describe not only the behavior of what you're going to focus on, say as an example, focusing on building my self-confidence and specific tasks or assignments you're given at work. And I want you to specifically describe the project, the task, or the situation in which you're going to be building that strength. So staying with the example of self-confidence, I might be very self-confident in projects that I'm working on and leading that I have already had experience in. But maybe my manager has asked me to be involved in a new project, an assignment where I don't have as much confidence because I haven't done it before. I'd like you to specifically reference the situation and what you're going to focus on in terms of your self-confidence, and defining very specifically then the behaviors that you're going to engage in. So maybe it might be I tend to be more reserved and quiet in meetings when I'm still on the learning curve and I'm not clear on all the details. So my focus may be on actions then that I will put in column 2 so that I'm much more active in asking questions in meetings, seeking out other experts in order to help me understand the background and the information, and confidently reaching out and being aware of that it's okay not to know all the answers, and that part of showing confidence is being willing to ask good questions and to get others' input and to include their input and ideas into this new project or the task or the assignment that I'm working on. So column 1 should be a very specific definition of, first, the strength you're going to work on, and second, the inclusion of which project or situation or circumstance that you're going to be focused on, why it's important for you to develop this area and continue to expand this strength. Then you'll see at the bottom of the first column, you need to write down what obstacles you're likely to encounter. And of course, you just wrote a discussion board on obstacles and ways that you could use your strengths in order to address those obstacles. So here is where you'll want to reflect back on the discussion board and think about what it is in terms of, again, staying with the example of self-confidence. What may slow me down in this area? What obstacle might I need to focus on? And what steps will I take? And how will I use my strengths, maybe even some of my other strengths, to help me deal with this obstacle? Because I know I'm going to encounter it. It's going to happen because anytime you're talking about making change, by definition, we can't anticipate everything and obstacles will occur. So I want to be as proactive in thinking those through as I can. So that's column 1, describing what strength you're going to work on in what situation, and then what obstacles you're likely to encounter. Then in column 2, you're going to identify a minimum of 3 actions or behaviors that are linked to the strength you're seeking to develop. These actions or behaviors should actually focus on the next roughly 30 days. They should be very specific in what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, including how you're going to measure your success in that particular area. Now, I'm hoping you're going to reflect on your Warren Bennis summaries, where you wrote these exact types of elements, as well as your EI fieldwork, where you learned through the observations of others, as well as reading about the fieldwork of other colleagues in our class in order to identify approaches to engage, expand, and enhance both emotional intelligence and, in the case with the Warren Bennis summaries, the impact on leadership and the impact on growth and what leaders do in order to be effective. So for column 2, they should be very detailed, very specific actions and behaviors that are linked to the information in column 1, along with the measures. Again, look at the samples that I've posted on Blackboard of other individual development plans that students have written. Again, though, there should be a minimum of 3 actions, all of which are focused on about the next 30 days in terms of work, school, whatever venue that you're focused on in terms of the particular area that you've selected. The third column then, just as you've been doing in the Warren Bennis summaries, is around coaches and support people. So in this column, you need to list specific people by name, and if you prefer to use a pseudonym, that's absolutely fine. But describe not only what the person's name is, but what you're going to ask for them in terms of support. So you may describe, I'm going to ask Pat for support in meetings so that if it's a new project I'm working on and I need more self-confidence, Pat has more experience in this area. And what I'm going to request of her is that we spend time, maybe 20 minutes before our meetings, where I'm going to share with her my strategy and then ask for her feedback. Is there anything else I should incorporate or be aware of in light of the meeting that we're about to go into? And then I'm going to ask her during the meeting, if I forget or she comes up with an additional idea in a certain area, she's going to prompt me by saying, Deborah, I was also thinking you might want to consider, and then she'll prompt me in order to continue to take on the leadership role in the discussion on the new project that I'm looking to lead. And then I might have Henry, who will be a coach in my column 3. With Henry, he's not an expert in the particular area, but what I noticed with Henry is that he really knows a lot of different people in the organization, and he could give me ideas of other people in other departments and make suggestions of who I might want to reach out to in order to get more data, information, or ideas, so to help me expand my network in light of this project, because that's one of Henry's strengths. Then in column 4, you're going to write down the time frame for measuring, and these should be very short-term time frames, because what's in column 2 should be all things that are happening within about the next 30 days. So these time frames should be no longer than weekly in terms of when you're going to measure and how frequently you're going to measure your progress on those column 2 behaviors and the momentum that you have in those areas. So that will be what you'll complete for your individual development plan. You'll do this with 3 different areas. So you'll be completing this same form 3 different times with 3 different goals. Please do not just cut and paste from one to the other, or just directly cut and paste from your Warren Bennis summaries or from your emotional intelligence fieldwork. They should really be customized, refined, and detailed in order to demonstrate the fit toward the project or toward the situation or toward the development that you want to experience given what you described in column 1. So again, this would be very detailed, very specific, and I hope that you feel like you've gotten a lot of coaching and ideas from the last several weeks of our classes and what to do in order to ensure it's a good, specific, and thorough development plan. As you heard me say on week 1, this is a theory to practice course, and so this development plan should very much be practices and specific actions that you're going to take in order to continue to build your momentum as a leader in your current role. Again, whether your current position is a formal leadership role as a supervisor, manager, or director, or if you're an individual contributor and the type of leadership that you bring in terms of the work that you do and the activities that you engage in on a daily and weekly basis. So, you've heard me say my encouragement is to write that development plan first, because then the paper, there are 4 different sections in the paper and they directly correspond to what you've written in the development plan. The key is to write in that paper your reflection on the development plan, not to repeat what you've written in the development plan. For the final paper, I again have included samples, and you will need to have in this final leadership paper a minimum of 10 references, scholarly references. And again, you can use articles from any of the postings that I've made. You can also use articles from your Week 7 Scholarly Articles Research in order to have the minimum of 10 scholarly references. So this is the theory part of our Theory to Practice of Leadership class, where the development plan is your practice and your paper is more about the integration of the theories. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is to make sure you look at the rubric that is very detailed and that I've posted up on Blackboard for you, as well as the sample papers. Identify the resources, the scholarly papers that you'd like to cite. And again, just to reiterate, when you're citing scholarly papers, please make sure that you're focused on the outcomes or the conclusions of the papers, not a summary of some of the methodology or the tactics that were used. So as an example, we wouldn't want to have a citation that said, authentic leadership dates back to the 1700s as we look at the history of leadership research. That wouldn't really be saying much about what authentic leadership is per se. So I'd like you to really focus on describing what authentic leaders do and the linkage to emotional intelligence. There's clearly direct linkages to emotional intelligence and what we do when we're behaving in ways that demonstrate authentic leadership that really derive from who we are as an individual, and also the impact that we're seeking to make in positive ways on the people that we're working with. Again, for these scholarly references, you cannot use a video or a blog. They must be citations from a peer-reviewed journal article. So again, if you'd like to look at articles that are outside of what we've already posted on Blackboard, that's absolutely fine. If you have, though, any questions, feel free to send me the citation and maybe the abstract of the article so that I can review it and then provide you with feedback. So that's the final integration that's due on Week 10. So that will be the only assignment that I'll be doing Week 10, because obviously it's a very large integration that needs to be done. On Week 9, I'll have additional readings and videos for you to look at, and there will only be one discussion board post that I'll be asking you to do that will be an integration of your learnings across our previous 8 weeks. So, in summary, we'll have Week 8, we'll have the 3 Good Things paper that you'll write. Week 9, an integration of learnings in a discussion board post. And then on Week 10, it'll be your final leadership paper and development plan that will be due. So I wish you all the best in writing this. Please do reach out to me if you have any questions at all. Send me an email, or if you'd like to have a Skype or a voice-to-voice conversation, all those would be welcome. So in the meantime, I have posted on Week 8 video clip from Drew Dudley called Everyday Leadership. And it really emphasizes the importance of saying thank you and expressing gratitude and just letting people know how much they mean to you on a daily basis. So when you have a moment, I encourage you to watch that video and think about ways that you can exhibit everyday leadership through the processes, through the interactions, and how you reach out toward other people. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing your papers. Take care now.